All right. Welcome, everybody, to our 18th episode now of the Extraordinaire Within You. I have my amazing co host here with me, Dr. Vincenzo Berghella. And today I am so excited, and it's my pleasure to welcome today's guest, Dr. Alison Cahill. Dr. Cahill is a nationally recognized leader in MFM and currently serves as our amazing president for the Society for Maternal Fetal Medicine. She is the Associate Dean of Translational Research and Professor of Women's Health at Dell Medical School, University of Texas in Austin, where she continues to advance innovation, research, and aid in compassion care for all high risk OB patients. As an accomplished clinician scientist, educator, and mentor, Dr. Cahill has authored more than 300 peer reviewed publications, has been NIH funded for over 2 decades, and serves as the editor in chief for AJA Global Reports. Beyond her remarkable accomplishments, she is deeply respected in her collaborative research, generosity, and unwavering commitment to improving women's and families' lives. We are so incredibly honored to have you here with us, Dr. Cahill.
Thank you for having me.
Thank you. And usually, as all our returning audience and for our new audience, we always love to start our sessions with gratitude. So, Vince, Dr. Cahill, I'll let you go ahead and say something you're grateful for, and I'll pass it on to Vince and then myself.
Oh, what I'm grateful for.
Yes.
My goodness. I'm incredibly grateful for health, family, all the opportunities I've been given, incredible wellness of mentees and, a successful day on labor and delivery yesterday, which was very, very busy, but we had a lot of beautiful outcomes. So I don't know. That's my bundle of gratefulness.
I love that. Love that. Thank you so much. How about you?
Family, I guess. We have a little house here in Cape May. Not here. I'm not there. I'm in Philadelphia working,
Mentally there.
but my mind is probably there. This Memorial Day weekend is coming, and I hope everybody takes a break. I think I'm going to have a boys' night with my 4-year-old, one of the nights, and then spend some time with the rest of the family, the other kids, and my wife. And anytime that I can find, quality time to spend with family members, it's precious, and I'm grateful for. What about you, Kavita?
Thank you. I think that's beautiful. Family is always so important. I think today for me, I'd say I'm so grateful for all the opportunities to serve, to help people. I think we were all just talking about how all of us are on L&D and it might be busy, but those are the moments you realize, like, wow, I have this opportunity to do these wonderful things, to take care of patients and to serve, or even to do this podcast is, serving the growth and helping, other younger MFMs around the country learn from top leaders like you. So any opportunity to help other people, I'm just grateful for all of that. So thank you so much. All right. So, we always start our first session with our favorite question, which is always if you can kind of take us back all the way to your childhood and tell us a little bit about, kind of how your upbringing may have shaped who you are today or your career or you as a person.
Oh, my. Okay. So the first part, kind of career choice, I would say that remains a mystery to everybody, including me. So from a very young age, I wanted to be a doctor. I don't even know if this company is still alive and well, but there was this Fisher Price company back when I was a child, and I had this doctor kit. And so I wanted to sort of listen to everybody's heart with this kind of faux stethoscope from a super young age. And so, my grandmother says, from the moment I could say kind of what I wanted to do, I said I wanted to be a doctor. That was the family oddity. Nobody was a scientist, nobody was a doctor or had ever been, and wasn't really from a long line of advanced education. So that was a little bit of a strange one, but for whatever reason, and it's not like I had a really inspiring pediatrician or something. I just always seemingly wanted to be a doctor, and that's
Wow.
that's the story. I took a little bit of like a deviation at the, at the college time, because I was a dual major in art history and chemistry, and my with a plan to still become a doctor. And I just loved the art history side of things. And when I was in my beginning of my junior year, I had to take a PChem lab, or at the same time was an architecture lab that I really wanted to do. And, I was 20, and what do you know? And so I went and looked, and the PChem book, the textbook, was like an old dictionary that had almost see-through pages and 1 million of them. And it looked so awful. And I just decided, well, I'm just going to be an art history major. So it derailed me a little bit because I was an art history major, and then that was not super acceptable to medical schools. So I took a year in between and did some grad school to finish up all of my things, and then went on to medical school. So medicine was always the plan. But I guess I'm a little bit possibly interesting in art museums.
I love that. Especially that artwork behind you too. We'll definitely come back to that. But yeah, so where did you grow up? You don't mind me asking? And
so I grew up in the Northeast, and my grandmother was a huge influence in my life, from Brooklyn, and so from the New York, Connecticut area. And yeah, definitely a Northeasterner. Grew up a Yankees fan, big sports fan. So we can talk about that if you'd like. Grew up a Giants fan, but have learned to be very quiet because I'm married to and now have 2 children that are so crazy Eagles fans. But I just follow along peripherally and have become an Eagles fan because you just can't deny it. But yes, I grew up in the Northeast and did all of my schooling there. And my training there, and then did my subspecialty training in the Midwest at WashU in St. Louis.
Awesome.
It's interesting. I was talking with actually one of my future daughters-in-law, Alison, and it's so great to have you here, about nature versus nature. It brings me back. I always talk about 50-50. And because one of my favorite questions is where your drive came from. And it's interesting because you say, no scientists, no doctors. But when I ask people, often there is somebody, maybe it's your grandma, you mentioned her already, who kind of inspired something like, obviously hard work, which took you where you are, and dedication to some cause or calling. Did you have any of that? Where does your drive come from? Is it all genetic or
I don't know, but she, incredibly hardworking, and an incredible source of completely unconditional love. And so
beautiful.
I think, and really wanted me and my sister, it's just the 2 of us, wanted us to really wanted us to go to greater places than we went to, which I think is a great philosophy I feel like I take with me towards mentorship and now in my life, but really, didn't go to college or that sort of thing, but we were absolutely going to go, and was really sort of phenomenal in that way, just so incredibly supportive. And, when I said that I was at 4, I was going to be a doctor, she actually was the person that said, yeah, all right, you're going to be a doctor.
Oh, wow.
Incredibly supportive of that. So, so I think that some of that, and then just incredibly, hardworking, completely dedicated to the 2 of us. And I guess some of it.
Is this your mother's mother?
Mm-hmm.
Or mother's? And she was close geographically?
She was always with us.
And what did she do? It doesn't matter really what she did. It's more how she did it. But was she, you said, very hardworking?
Yeah, she did like a bunch of different things.
Okay.
I think,
But
she
did
was
them
like
well.
even a bus driver, and, she was
Wow.
a, school bus driver, but she also, she was this incredible seamstress.
Wow.
And so she actually made, this is actually a crazy thing I haven't thought about in a long time. She actually handmade clothes for my Barbies.
Oh,
Wow.
Yeah,
That's
so we
great.
didn't have like a ton of means or anything, but she handmade all of these clothes for my Barbie dolls. It was crazy.
Do you have them still? Some?
Yeah.
Maybe?
I have the clothes. I don't know what the Barbies are. I have the clothes.
well, you kept the
And then
important parts.
so the big deal every year for me and my sister was that she handmade us. She kind of worked on them from the summer on, and she was dedicated Catholic and like kind of raised us that way. And so Christmas was a big deal. And she handmade us Christmas ornaments every year.
Oh.
And those we both have and hang on our tree every year that we have. And there's like, she started to put, as she got older, she started to put tags on them, what the years they were and that sort of stuff. So we have them. They're sort of like one of my most prized personal possessions, honestly.
Wow, that is so beautiful. And just like hearing you share that is like so heartwarming, And I feel like just hearing that story, it really goes to show how even one person believing in you when you were little makes or breaks the trajectory of your whole life. I feel like that's your journey started because she believed in you and your journey and just gave you the, like how Vince likes to put it, gives you wings to fly. When you have unconditional love, you just feel like you can go out into the world and literally do anything and become president for the Society for Maternal Fetal Medicine.
Well, I think that there's quite a bit of luck in that. But yes, I'm very fortunate.
Oh wow, no, that's absolutely wonderful. Now, if you take you take a 30,000-foot view of your life, it looks like you've had quite a few very successful moments in your life. What would you say are three of the most pivotal points, either in your personal or professional life, that you would like to highlight or share with us? Or like, how did you even get into MFM maybe? Or
Yeah, so that probably would be one. So I went to medical school, sort of by the time I sort of evolved to when I still knew I was going to medical school, but I went to medical school to do pediatric cardiothoracic surgery. So that's really what I wanted to do. And I arranged my entire third year, because there were a lot of people in my medical school class who wanted to be OBGYNs. And I knew I was never going to be an OBGYN. So I said, I'll do OB last. Everybody was sort of gunning for, we do it first, we do it second. That's how you're going to get in, what have you. And I'd planned out at that time at my med school, most of the fourth year was pretty elective. And so I'd planned out strategically, I was going to do about 6 weeks with Charlie Kleinman, who is one of the grandfathers of fetal echo, and then spend several weeks with Norwood to, kind of do those sorts of things. So I was all sort of set up to do that. And then in the very last rotation of my third year, I did OBGYN, and I was on call my first night, which I know is sort of, for any young people listening, like that doesn't happen anymore maybe, but anyway. And so into my first evening, I was there for the delivery of first baby I ever saw delivered. And that was it. So I came out of that delivery and I called my sister, who I've mentioned I'm extremely close with, and said, she's like, don't be ridiculous. You had your same plan your whole life, just cool out. There's going to be something you hate about this. And and I loved every bit of it. And so then at the time, Dr. Curry was my chair. And so I had to sort of humbly walk into his office and say, would you support my very last minute application to OBGYN? And very grateful that he did. So I guess that that was life-changing number one. I guess life-changing number two career-wise was during my residency at Penn. I was surrounded by folks whose papers I was reading to figure out how to care for people on obstetrics services, side of the services especially. And, I was really prompted for my residency research project. It came from a kind of a question that I asked, and it's like, we don't know that, but you could help us sort that out. That as a prod. And I think that sort of was the seed that changed what ultimately became what, at least the shape of my career, what my job looks like. Though I would never would have believed that. And then I guess my last pivotal point in sort of this, I'm thinking of it in the jump off points. My last pivotal point was probably in fellowship when I decided, gosh, I want to try to give being a scientist a go. And so I'm just going to give it a go and write for some money and see if somebody thinks that any of this is important. And I got lucky, and that reshaped what I ended up doing. So I don't know. I don't know if those are the answers that you were looking for, but in terms of launching points, those probably were three that come to mind.
That's amazing. Go ahead, Vince. Sorry, Vince, we can't hear you right now. Sorry.
You're still on mute or something.
Can you hear me now?
Yeah, we can hear you.
Yeah, sorry. I don't know why. I may interrupt once in a while just to keep my microphone alive. Sometimes it goes dead. But I have a few comments and then follow up quick questions. What you said, Alison, beautifully. First of all, there's no luck involved here. It's being ready for the opportunities to come along, and that's what you did with hard work and dedication. Second, just quick question. So Norwood, you were here in Nemours. Was he in Nemours? What was Norwood? You say pediatric cardiology.
He was in Delaware.
Yeah, in Delaware.
And
Nemours.
he had a second program
Children's Hospital
that was in Orlando at Arnold.
Correct.
Where Charlie went. Yep.
Yeah.
And then I was able to scrub with Charlie's surgeon and things like that. It was pretty amazing. I kept my whole plan. So it was okay. So Dr. Curry said you can still apply to OBGYN, but you can keep all of your stuff.
Oh, wow.
So I still did that and helped put kids on bypass. And, but now I guess I diagnose those things and don't fix them. But just make friends with people that fix them. Yeah.
And can you expand a little bit at the first delivery, the first call, the first delivery?
Yeah.
What, apart from, gut feeling, emotions, but what do you think in retrospect after a few years? The positivity of it, the emotions, the science, the experience itself, that made you, you knew that night,
Yeah, I think that I didn't know at the time, but if I could look back, like you're asking, I think what I was not yet, what I had not yet realized was that I liked taking care of people that were sick to try and help them have the most optimal outcomes. And I really toyed with gyn-onc, actually, and sort of was very sort of close between those two. And I would say that night, she was sick. She was a sick patient who had a great outcome. And I just thought that the whole thing was, I just really admired everybody who was taking care of her. And I also kind of rotating onto OBGYN, I don't know how to like quantify this in a way that sounds intelligent, but sometimes I tell junior people, like, sometimes you rotate onto things and feel like these are your people. And I really felt like, wow, these are my people combined with, I want to be just like that.
Wow.
Yeah. And it was incredible. I mean, it's obviously incredible for, to see, new life come into the world and things like that. And what that sort of family experience is like, just watching that. It's incredible. It's incredible to be part of that. So it's so privileged. But the whole thing for me was like really mind blowing. And so it completely altered what my previous 6-year plan, from obviously a very young mind, had been, which is why I always tell people, well, you never know.
Yeah.
But it's always, kind of from a little bit of a selfish place that, I thought I for sure knew in my type A personality, but I didn't actually know. I was grateful that I didn't know.
Yeah. I love that. I love that you shared that. And it's so beautiful because I can see the passion come through even when you're still talking about that first moment that touched your life. Like I can still see the joy that is coming through today. That's really wonderful. You touched a little bit about mentorship earlier. Along your career, is there anyone that you looked up to as inspiration, or was it like an impactful mentor in your life? And kind of, if you can tell us a little bit about that, how shaped your career.
Yeah, I guess maybe my answer to that is going to be a little bit non-traditional. So I feel fortunate that I've had basically a kind of almost a mentorship committee, like a cluster of mentors. And they've all given sort of different pieces to me in terms of my kind of maturation. And I think that when I was a fellow, I got my master's in clinical investigation, and even then, I had a mentorship committee and not a single mentor, and they sometimes disagreed, and I think that growing comfortable in that space, that people that advise you might not give you the same advice, and so eventually you have to kind of decide or figure out where you're going to settle in. But then there are sort of very specific mentors, I feel like, who really, I mean, all of my mentors, I feel like, have, and it's the thing that I try to prioritize the most now, gave me so much and were so generous, that, as a general theme. But then there were very specific people. So when I was an attending at WashU St. Louis and then moved into a division chief role, there was a mentor that was outside my department completely. And he was incredibly important for me because he was detached. It didn't matter for him whether I did X or whether I did Y. It didn't affect his pay line. It didn't affect, so many different things. And then, there's, I was a young member. I've been engaged with ACOG for a long time, and I was a young member on the practice bulletin committee, or I'm not sure if it's called that anymore, but basically a junior person that's allowed to come, but, and learning. And at the time, Sarah Kilpatrick was the chair of that committee. And I felt like that was the first time that I really saw, I was allowed to be in a committee setting, and especially a national committee setting, and I saw someone who was modeling the way that I aspired to be, that was so incredibly effective, with really complicated personalities in the room. I learned so much. I think I contributed way less than what I learned and gained and matured from that experience. So those are some examples, but there have really been many people, and I'm very fortunate that there's never been particularly one. And I think that some people function best when there's just one particular one whose name that they can call out. But I would say that I've benefited from a little bit of a non-traditional structure that's really been a great, an incredibly generous collection of folks.
Wow, I love that. Thank you so much for sharing that. I wanted to highlight one thing you said over there. You said you felt like you contributed not as much as what you learned again. But I think that is so important for like young faculty, right? As we are trying to grow and learn to become leaders. Sometimes I think these early years, there's actually so much value in just learning and observing. And, like to not minimize that and always feel like you're not doing enough unless you're contributing. Because that aspect of learning is what allows you to contribute more effectively in the future too. I think that's such a beautiful thing you highlighted.
Yeah, I think that's, I feel like as much as you can absorb from those rooms that you get into, I think it helps you also sort of adopt your style and those sorts of things. So an example of that for me also is just, I'm trying to connect, like back in the day when you were a fellow and you thought you wanted to be a scientist, there was this program that they had in Aspen where you would go and for a couple of days and learn about kind of science and the NIH, and it was NICHD sponsored. Yes. And at the time, Kathy Spong was a leader at NIC in that role at NIC. She's still a leader, but a leader at NICHD, and was there and was planning this workshop, like the revisit of the workshop of electronic fetal monitoring, which obviously the fact that I was there had a pivotal impact on some of my early science as well. But I was just a young random person. And here's another example of somebody who's giving a young person an opportunity and invited me to go. And I didn't have a thing to say literally in that room, right? I felt like they were maybe going to send me a bill for taking up oxygen. But the room was filled with these incredible people. And it was very eye-opening for me to realize that these kind of leaders in the field who had written the books were actually debating around some of the things that we actually do day to day on labor and delivery, and inspired my first big grant that I wrote on electronic fetal monitoring. I actually sort of partially wrote it on the plane coming home. So, wow. Amazing that she gave me the opportunity, but another example of just being in the room and listening and just watching, it really, I just feel like you can learn so much.
I love that. So,
Vincenzo, we have you on mute again. Still, we have you on mute.
Not yet, yeah. It usually will come back after in a bit. I think you're still on mute.
Vincenzo, we don't have you.
No, we cannot hear you yet.
Now?
Oh, now we can.
Oh, there you go.
Yeah,
it's back. Display, but again, Alison, I can't say it enough times. There was an opportunity there, and you took it, and you wrote your first grant. So again, not too much luck, but opportunities. And I want to second, for a young audience, I think having many mentors is so important, and making the most of it. You've been an amazing, prestigious institution your whole career. You're great mentors, and you made the most of those, inspiring collaborations. Could you give us an example maybe of a positive advice, without mentioning names, positive advice, or maybe, Kathy Spong's early son, like this was a good opportunity, but some personal advice you were given that was positive, that really, changed things in a positive way. and some advice that maybe wasn't so good. Again, you don't have to say where it came from,
Sure.
and that could have taken you, astray from what you really, wanted for yourself.
Sure. So, okay.
Sorry.
So the positive. So many people, I think, were very encouraging, and I think sort of gave me the message, which is probably no longer sort of like maybe the most in vogue thing to say in 2026, but it was just like, you just have to be willing to work harder than everybody else. And that's not all the time, and that's not every day, but you do have to be willing to work hard, right? And I think that all of us have written grants on a Saturday night where we didn't want to be doing that and that sort of stuff. And you just have to be willing to do that, because that's what the structure of the business is. But it's so rewarding on the other side when you sort of log into your login.gov and you see your score and you're like, oh my goodness, we're going to get to do this. That was great. I would say that there was somebody still in late part of my training that was in a very senior leadership position, where I was just confirming that it would be okay, because I had had abstracts accepted to SMFM to go. And to have that meeting, this person wanted to review those abstracts and reviewed them. And when I got to the meeting, said, well, if you want to waste your life doing this kind of research, then that's up to you. And, I feel like, that's just a particular perspective on the type of science that's important. And, again, why I was so fortunate to have many mentors around me. And, you can cry about it or you can move on, and so deciding to do that. I had another very senior person early in my attending career who, let me sort of describe this so that I won't give this away, but basically told me again that I would ruin my career if I was going to do any research on electronic fetal monitoring.
Wow.
Dud. Like the thing is the thing is a loss. And my, feeling, like thinking about that and then talking about that with other mentors was, well, like, it's a dud because, we've let this happen to us. And so somebody should try and do something. So maybe I'm going to try and do something, So I think that, and so I guess those are in the themes of people trying to discourage you. And I think that figuring out amongst your mentors who you really trust in the end. Because one of my mentors that I really trusted in the end, I wanted to do the pushing trial when I was like almost straight out of the gate. And they're like, well, NICC is not going to give you $12 million. So you got to work up to that, baby. And you got to do some other stuff until you're able to do that. And thankfully I was able to collaborate with Dr. Tully to do that project later on. But, so I think that you got to figure out kind of who you trust for that good advice. So there's, good advice, and then there's not as good advice. And then there's sometimes, I think discouraging advice. And I think that figuring out who you're going to trust, who's trying to tell you this is not the right time in your career to do that, or that's not something that's really worth your while to pursue, versus somebody who's just has a bad opinion about what you're thinking about. So I think trying to think those through are helpful. I don't know if that answers your question, Vincenzo.
Yeah. No, I love that. Go ahead, Vin. Sorry, you're back.
Vincenzo,
No, go ahead.
Oh, you're
Beautiful.
back. You're back.
Yeah.
I love that. I'm just wanting to highlight one thing for, I think the younger generation and stuff. You mentioned something that you said that it might not be in vogue right now for 2026 to say you got to be willing to work hard. But that's actually what I want about, because I think people really misunderstand, especially younger physicians, this concept of wellness that everyone's still trying to find. And wellness does not mean not working hard, but it's working hard on the things you care about that is aligned with what you are passionate about. Then it doesn't really feel like it's taking away from you. Because you said it brought you so much joy and fulfillment, right? And I love that. So I think that's great advice still till today. It still holds true. Work hard, work out on the things you care about to make the difference you care about and the impact you want to create, right? And that doesn't burn you out. That fills your cup tremendously. Yeah. And as a mentor now, you've mentored probably like so many students, residents, fellows, trainees, colleagues. What are some things you hold dear as values as a mentor?
Oh boy. Well, I think that I would say that I just get way more joy out of, the most junior person having the first poster someplace, or that, it's so joyful for me. I just, I really, I really, really love that. And I think that there's, for me, that time spent and the chances to sort of, add some sort of resources and things like that for young people to be successful. I think that it's really important, actually, that we are very focused on the next generation. I think that, times are a little bit tough, and figuring out who's going to really carry the torch and wanting them to be better than we've been, at least for me. I think is, discover way more things than we were able to discover, find way more things. I think that's really important. So I really enjoy that. In my role here at UT Austin, I'm able to, kind of extend mentorship way beyond women's health, but still spend a ton of time with folks in women's health to do that sort of thing. And I think that, I don't know. I think that it's an incredibly important investment in, I guess, in science and, in health and how we're going to be better. That's what the next generation is going to do.
That's great. Can you hear me, Alison?
I can hear you.
Oh, beautiful. I think something has happened to Kavita. My next follow-up is on the PUSH trial. Not everybody loves research, but you and I certainly do love it and live by it. And if you can go back, and you said that idea came pretty early and you wanted $12 million, right from the start, maybe as a resident or fellow at Penn and whatever. But can you tell us again, in terms of mentoring, how, the idea came about, from a case or whatever, and then, how you took it to the level. And what I want to get to is, from the idea as a junior person to, I love things that change practice. And I can't think of many other things that change practice the way, your one big trial did. Everybody around the world, changed, and based on, over 2,500 people, like a huge trial. So I don't know if it seems, I'm sure to a lot of people, an impossible task, to go to something, find the right answer, and then change the world. But you did it, so maybe you can take us through that. It's possible, right?
Well, thanks. Well, to be very clear, so it's not my trial, and Dr. Julie and I were partners in crime on that. So, I was. So the origin of the trial was, or the thinking about the second stage, not the origin of the trial, but the thinking about the second stage was moving from a residency at Penn to a fellowship at WashU in St. Louis.
Oh, that's right.
And I would sign out, we would sign out as interns. So I would, sign out the board and people would be complete. And Sam Perry would be sitting there and like eating his dinner, over his, heated up thing or whatever, and looking at me and looking at the thing and asking like, she's complete. Why is she not pushing, all this sort of stuff. And it was like, oh my God, like have them be pushing by the time we sign out, And then I went to, Washington, St. Louis, and there was this bullpen of, all these boards, and people were complete that they're signing out. And I don't see any of the, this thing. Nothing's happening there. And I'm asking, what's going on? Oh, she's laboring down. I'm like, okay, how long has she been laboring down for? Oh, she doesn't look like a good pusher. What is that? Or, oh, well, we're not sure how long. We're just waiting for her to, feel like she wants to push, this sort of stuff. So that was crazy making to me, because both factions were, kind of, this is the best way. No, this is the best way. And in my brain at that point, and, that was becoming a scientific brain, I'm thinking that cannot be right. So it cannot be. They're either equivalent, or something's better and something's worse, and somebody's getting the short change. So, so that was the beginning of my interest in the second stage. And so in the early, I was thinking that it would be fun to do a trial as I was trying to emerge, as a trialist in my own sort of education. But really, we did a bunch of observational work and things like that. And various fellows worked with me and those sorts of things, looking at, larger observational studies that we were able to look at, who's a good pusher and who's not, or who's perceived to be, or who's selected to labor down, and that sort of stuff. So we looked at a lot of those things in a lead up to be able to do it. But it was, I think, and then I still remember a meeting with Method, and Method's like, I think you might have something here. And looking at the second stage, and I'm like, I'm telling you, buddy, we don't know what's going on. And then just a couple of weeks later, I was at some kind of national meeting, I can't remember what, and I was talking to Bill Groban, and I'm like, I'm thinking that we should look at the second stage. And Bill's like, I hate the second stage. And I'm like, Bill, you hate the second stage because we don't know anything. So anyway, those are sort of the small origins. And then, it was a little bit of a complicated process because we were never part of the network. So to do the pushing trial, we had to apply through what existed at the time as a large grant process. So we were accepted to be able to do that, to apply for a bunch of more money than a normal R01 would be. And then, and kind of structure that whole thing together. And I actually still remember I was staffing resident clinic, and I still remember when I logged in and I saw our score, and I knew we were going to be able to do the trial, and I called Method. So it's great. And so those are things like, you do all that work, and then there are those really fantastic moments where you actually feel like you never know if you're going to be able to answer it, but you feel like you have a shot.
And the teammates you had were amazing. I don't know if you want to talk more about the teammates.
Yeah. So
because again, everybody talks about, that's the Cahill trial, even if, like you say beautifully, it's a team. But maybe that's what I think some young people don't realize. If it's just you, it seems like impossible. But if you get the right people, the right people to tell you, first of all, this needs to be done, like Bill. Second of all, here's where the NIH money could come from, maybe Method and others. And then you got some amazing institution and people, to be your cause eventually, right?
Yeah, we were very lucky. I mean, I think that we tried to be thoughtful. We wanted to represent different kind of constellations of how people, practice obstetrics, and for it to be, it's never maximally generalizable, but you try, right? So, and I think that this is one of the things, kind of if I'm allowed to say, for SMFM as a, kind of a networking place, especially for junior people, I mean, that's, incredible, because some of those people that you meet or come up to your posters or things like that, or show interest in what you're thinking about, that can be an amazing place for you to call those people up and say, you know, I'm writing this grant, and I'm hoping that you think that you're able to do it. And so I think that, and you know, the other thing that I would say, so yes, so incredible. So Alabama, Penn, and their dual sites. We had a community site at our place at Missouri Baptist, and then Oregon that has, you know, a large midwifery presence. So trying to sort of have a constellation of different patients who would be in the trial, but also different obstetric practices for it to be really pragmatic. And those are the types of trials, you know, Vincenzo, that I tend to kind of design that are more pragmatic. But I think that, you know, the other thing that I would say, which is sometimes underrated, but is super cheap to do, is that we actually just launched surveys at all of those sites to understand how providers' practices were, to essentially demonstrate equipoise, that essentially it was a totally mixed bag and we weren't trying to kind of change practice with the trial. And the other was to do surveys across patients that would be eligible for the trial to figure out whether or not they'd be willing to participate. So sometimes, you know, people I don't think necessarily think that in trial planning that doing survey things, it sounds like very not sexy, but they can be published, and also they do count as preliminary data, as you two both obviously know. But just to say, it's an inexpensive way to kind of do that in the lead up. But you're right, Vincenzo. We had amazing partners to pull that off.
Yeah. I love that. That's great. I'd love to hear more about kind of your journey into leadership and into becoming SMFM president. You know, like, how did you go from all of that to this? Like, did you ever envision, was this like a dream or goal? Kind of, how did that happen?
Yeah, I don't know who was in the room to ask me to be president. So I don't know about that, but I'm extremely grateful and super honored. I think SMFM has been an important home for me since I presented my first poster when I was a second-year resident, and have been there every year ever since. And so I think that this is like maybe a dream beyond my mind, or an honor beyond my mind, that I would think that I would be picked to do this. So extremely grateful. And, you know, excited to be able to do it. But yeah, and in terms of other leadership things, I think, I guess I would say over time, I've learned about the things that I really like to do the most and like to do from a leadership perspective.
Great.
And I find, you know, now my leadership positions are really research and mentorship based at the school level. And for sure is the place of my most happiness. Though I've been grateful to have other leadership positions and run divisions and things like that. But I think, I guess I would say, the more I allowed myself to be introspective about the things that I liked and didn't like so much, then I was able to be really clear about kind of maybe the next thing I wanted to do or what I wanted to take on. And I think that naturally we gravitate towards what we're good at. And I think that sometimes we want to take on challenges to try and become good at something that we're not naturally good at. And sometimes we want to maybe move towards the things that we are naturally good at and kind of further develop those. And so I think that it's been, to be honest, like a little bit of an exploration in terms of, you know, figuring myself out. I'm a work in progress. Vincenzo, we can't hear you.
I can't hear you.
Again.
I can hear whispers. No, not yet. It's getting there.
Not quite.
Not quite, but getting there.
So, can you hear me now?
Yes, it's better.
Sorry. Camila, I'll ask a couple of questions in sequence to Alison real quick. One about SMFM and one about her role now in Austin. And just to give her a chance in a minute or two, first about SMFM, any message you want to give about, now as SMFM president, you want people to know what to help with, what message from SMFM? And then I'll ask you the question, that question in a second.
Well, I think your question is about SMFM, and thank you for that. I just would say that it's an incredibly exciting time, and we've had so much growth. It's unbelievable. And Vincenzo, you've been so instrumental in helping us with some of our international activities. We have a second Global Congress, obviously this fall, and just, really fantastic times. We have our brand new CEO. Neil is starting June 1st. We're super excited. The search is coming to the end point of the new leader of the foundation. We're doing great on our strategic plan. We're now just starting our second year, and obviously have launched our own journal. I mean, there's so many fantastic and exciting things. So thank you for asking that. I mean, just really very exciting times to be privileged to be the president of SMFM, for sure.
Yeah, it's our favorite organization for sure. And the other question was, we talked about this, I think, briefly in the past, you and I, one-to-one. Is, we're kind of married to this idea of, assistant professor, social professor, division director, chairman, dean, etc. And you've had many leadership positions, but like you said before, you have to know who you are first and foremost, and what your strengths and your passion and what you like to do. And while you were division director, now you're, I guess, associate dean for women's studies or something like that. Can you tell us a little bit more about, because I love those positions that kind of, play to your strengths. And can you tell us how you got to that point? Any advice for people how to get to that point, and really what you see yourself? You talked about mentorship in that position, what you actually do, day to day that you love with that.
Yeah, so my current roles are my kind of big administrative roles here. I'm the associate dean for the School for Translational Research, and then I direct a research institute here that's really focused on clinical and translational research. And I would say that I think that just kind of trying to be as introspective as you can along the way about things that you really like to do and things that sort of don't really make you very happy are really good to know. No job is perfect, and this is not sort of a puppies and rainbows, though I love puppies and have two of them, but it's not a puppies and rainbows discussion. But just to say, becoming sort of attuned to what you feel like you're good at and what you have feedback that you're good at and what you really like to do. I really like mentorship generally, and really, really like career development and research mentorship specifically. And so have created programs here for, mentorship and research mentorship and, wayfinding and other types of things that I think were needs that I thought, I could help fulfill and help understand how to do that and that sort of thing. So I think, again, a constant work in progress, but, figuring those things out. I think that, to your point, Vincenzo, that sort of, you should become, this is what you should do. You should become, this, and this. You should become, a division chief, and then, or a fellowship director, and then division chief, or maybe both the same. And then you should become some vice chair of something, and then you should become a chair, and then you should become a dean if you're going to stay in academia or some hospital, like whatever that is. And I think that that's not for everybody. And I think that, well, I hope I can say this because it's me, but I think that you can still contribute and not follow the absolute most traditional pathway. And you can, and that is still okay. And I think that's one of the things that's so great, I feel like, about our sort of national collaborations or even international collaborations, that I feel like I have people reach out to me and ask me for kind of advice and things like that, which I'm always happy to hop on a Zoom and do that sort of stuff, because I think that I maybe had in this latter stage sort of a less traditional plan or path that is still okay. You can still be okay.
Yeah. Wow. I love that. No, thank you so much for sharing that. And I think that's so important for us younger generations here, because, I think the structure of medicine, it's not like just academic or private practice anymore. It's changed. The landscape has changed so much. And I think your message really highlights that you can contribute significantly to SMFM or to the community without necessarily having to follow this, what we were taught was the traditional academic path. That is the only way you define success. So and I've seen a lot of efforts from the Society for Maternal Fetal Medicine in the last few years, which has been much more open to involving people that are in the non-traditional, non-academic part to contribute, to present, to show up, to be in committees. And that's been a wonderful thing to see as well. Yeah. And, we're kind of down to our last few minutes here. You just want to touch a little bit on, outside of medicine as well. Is there anything, you talked a little bit about your art and, your love for art at the back as well. And, even your journey in the beginning, you said you went into arts major. Like, you definitely have this very creative streak for sure. How do you kind of engage that part of your life or something outside of work? What do you like to do for fun?
Oh, yeah. So I have definitely along maybe sort of parallel to the path that Vincenzo was just talking about, sort of emerged into sort of or tried to evolve the ability to have a little bit of work-life balance, which in fairness, I was not particularly good at, but is actually fantastic to have. So I highly recommend it. Yeah, my husband and I collect art. So this is one of my favorites behind me. This is called Big Sur. And we, from a area of the country that we really love very much, from Carmel by the Sea. And I love to run with my I have two big German Shepherds, and I go running with them most mornings. So we did 6 miles together this morning. So that was very enjoyable. And my husband and I really like to cook and spend time with friends, see my sister and her husband as much as possible. We love Cabo, so we go to Mexico a few times a year. And yeah, Thanksgiving is our favorite holiday. We have everybody here and do a big cook, and that's kind of our thing. My husband and I both golf. So yeah, we try and weave all those good things in. And I think it's interesting, I think that I realized that as I sort of balance some of those out, it's actually made me more efficient. So, and also I'm like a little bit weird. So I sometimes write in my mind while I'm running, which I know is like very weird. So I don't mean to end this nice hour being strange, but I sometimes do that, but just sort of generally kind of things are cooking, and sometimes it'll be the way that my mind relaxes and I kind of can think about things. So I think it's learning to have better balance has made me certainly happier, but much more relaxed, and I think more patient, actually. So I would highly recommend. But yeah, there's lots of things in life that I like to do that I guess no one gets to see. But thanks for asking about those. It's always very nice. And we have 2 boys, and obviously I mentioned everybody's Eagles fans, so it's always crazy during the football season. And our older son is getting married this fall, so I think we're all
that's great.
We're very
that's
focused
great.
on that. Yes,
that's great.
Yeah, it's been
Alison.
Yes,
that's a beautiful life.
Yeah.
I feel like the luckiest girl.
Yeah, beautiful life, and I can't thank you for sharing all you've shared, and it was a pleasure having you. really big time. That's great.
Yeah.
Kavita, go ahead.
No, thank you so much. I think just hearing your story, I feel like I've had a smile on the whole hour, even though you're talking, like, no matter what topic you're talking about, there's just joy that you just ooze in all your conversations. And, I think you remind us that great leadership is just not about achievements, right? It's about the impact, the humility, and how you just lift everyone around you to rise along with you. And it's just so beautiful. We're so grateful for you joining us today, for all the work you've done and continue to do for the Society for Maternal Fetal Medicine and all of us globally. So thank you so much. We're so grateful for you today.
Thanks so much for having me. I was very honored to come.
Thank you.
Bye, everyone.